Yo, 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 welcome back to the Feather Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris, I'm your host, and I'm super excited to be back here having the conversation with you. Episode 220 today, and we're talking about an interesting topic, which it's kind of like, that whole saying around how a wolf in a sheep's skin. That's essentially what we're talking about, but in this case, we're talking about resistance disguised as what we call logic. To avoid doing the things that we're meant to be doing. And I'm gonna start with this question before we get into any of the details, is what logical reason are you using to avoid doing the thing you know you want or need or should be doing, right? And this is something that I've always struggled with. I've gotten better at identifying it quicker to be able to understand that I'm doing these different things or side quests or using logic to kind of, put me off from doing the thing that I really need to do. And sometimes it's usually the hard things and the uncomfortable things that, we're putting off, right? And the logical excuses that we're using is it's just not the right time, or I need more research, or it's just not being realistic, or I'm not being realistic. And it's kind of like, we're using these smart excuses, but it continues to stuck our life, keeps our life stuck in this, point in time. And it's probably the real reason why you haven't started yet, right? And that's why I really want to talk about why logic sometimes can be just fear in disguise. And we try to go through this process of rationalizing resistance. And it's most likely probably why you're not moving forward. So that's what we're going to get into today. It'll probably be short and sweet. Don't really want to harp on this. I just want to get straight to the point. Keep it simple, not stupid, but keep it simple for you guys. And we'll talk a few different prompts. I'll share some stories of my own, but really I want to help you just see if there's something here that you can hit the hammer on the head of the nail and actually just get back to it and realize, no, I just need to take action and I just need to get the work done. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, please buckle up, get cozy. The other thing I will say is if you do enjoy these episodes, please like, subscribe. And if you want to continue the conversation, you can leave a comment as well. But most of all, while listening to this, if you think there's someone else that probably needs to hear this, share it with them, let them know, call them out, and hopefully together we can all further our lifestyles together. All right, let's get into it. So, we'll start with the prompt again. What logical reason are you using to avoid doing the things you know you want to do? Right? And it's not fear holding you back. We use this thing called logic, or at least that's what we're telling ourselves. And we don't always call it resistance. We call it planning. We call it patience. We call it strategy. Or I'm just planning a bit more, or just being patient for the right time. Or, I'm just, trying to work out the best strategy to move forward. But is it really that? Or is it really just this refined or redefined avoidance? So there is this mask of logic, which I think once you start to think about this, you're going to realize very quickly there's things that you're doing. So, right, when we resist things, we rarely say, I'm scared, right? We never come out and say, I'm fearful of this, I'm scared of doing this. We sometimes just say, I'm being smart, or it's just not the right time, or I need to be more prepared. We use these logical points as, I guess we could call them, like comfort blankets. They're just dressed in rational clothing. We're trying to use these things to help people understand it's like why we're justifying of not doing the things that make us uncomfortable or make us do the hard things, right? We don't want to have to do that. But the reality is, if we do that, we're going to get further down the line. So we got to ask ourselves, do you think this is true? One, do you think it's true? And secondly, it's like, are we doing this as a delay tactic, or is it just something that's normal? I actually think we need to just take a little bit of a sidestep here and really understand what are we talking about when it gets to logic, right? I'm not trying to say that logic isn't good, right? But what we do need to ask is like, am I actually being truly logical, right? Or are we just cleverly trying to avoid something which is going to make us uncomfortable? When logic aligns with your values and your actions, let me say this again. When your logic aligns with your values, actions will follow, right? So the other way we could look at this is when logic protects you from discomfort, stagnation follows. So you have to be looking at it from that perspective. It might be logical, But what are the reasons why it's logical? Or are we just framing it in a way that makes sense in our head of why it's logical? Now, I'm not saying logic is bad, right? Let's just be clear here. I'm saying the version of logic we sometimes use to justify all these situations, it's less about strategy. It's more about self-protection, right? So we really need to make sure we understand, are we doing this as a way of self-sabotage? Or are we actually being logical here? If you've got the facts in front of you saying the only way forward is to do X, Y, and Z, right? You might have multiple options, but we continuously try and choose the easy way, or we avoid starting, or we avoid doing all these things. We're not logically doing the best thing for ourselves. We're logically trying to make these things up that logically describe why we're okay not doing these things, when really we then get frustrated of why we're not making progress. And that's reason why is because we haven't actually gone and do the thing that we need to do. So the most common smart excuses that we hear is, I just need to research a little bit more, or I don't want to waste my time doing it wrong. It's too late to start now. I'm too old. Or what if I burn out? Or what if it doesn't work out? Or, I don't have enough money to start, or I don't even know who to speak to. Or sometimes we say all these things and we haven't even started. We don't even know if this is going to be the case, right? And a lot of the time, the answers to these things is actually just getting started. A lot of the time, all we got to do is actually just get out there and do some experience, and that research naturally falls into our laps. We realize we won't be wasting time when we actually start doing some of the work. And we'll realize it's not too late to start, because you'll gain momentum, and then all of a sudden, things are starting to happen in the way that you want them to happen, right? So we don't know what we don't know. Now, I could be wrong, and it doesn't work out the way we want, but we're still further ahead. So there's a couple of little prompts that I want to kind of challenge us on. Number one is, what smart excuse do we or I repeat that's kept me in the same place for so long? I tend to, when I know there's something that I need to do, I look for the other things that are least annoying to do. Even though they're things that I have to do, they're on my priority list, but they're not as important as the hard thing that I have to do. So then I go through and I actually smash out getting all these other things done. And I use them as an excuse to say, I got to do these before I can do that. Now, the good thing is I get those things done. But the bad thing is I'm avoiding the hard thing that I should be doing. And eventually it forces me to have to do that. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, but I know that that's something that I do. If I had just done the big thing first, we would probably be further ahead. Even though I still need to do those other jobs along the way, I'm probably actually better off paying someone else to do those side jobs, get that done while I'm working on the hard stuff. But we tend to avoid those things, and it takes time for us to realize that. The other thing we need to ask ourselves is the delay of doing whatever it is that we need to do, is it actually buying us clarity, or is it just giving me permission to hesitate? I think it's permission to hesitate. We justify why we haven't done it on the basis that we're doing something else which makes sense to be doing in this moment of time. And I call BS on that. What would I do today if I wasn't trying to be so careful? Well, look, I think one thing that I've realized is, especially building my own business, is I'm the only one that's responsible and accountable for this. So I've realized I can't keep being careful. You need to be careful, but I can start to be a little bit more bullish in giving things a go, learning to try different things and trying to figure out stuff through, there was that excuse around research. Well, sometimes the best research is actually just getting your hands dirty, getting out there, doing a little bit of experience. And that in itself is research. Plus you're applying yourself, you're going to learn on the job, and then you're able to move forward once that problem comes up again. That's my personal opinion. So there's a few things here that we can change around, right? We're just talking about research. Well, replace research with experimentation. Actually go out and experience it. We can replace timing with tension. If you feel tension, you're probably on the edge of growth. Tension is usually there's a pressure, or there's a little bit of stress, or things are moving. Tension is good. We want tension. Tension forces us to make a move. But if we're too scared to make that move, we blame it on timing, saying, it doesn't seem right. When actually, the feeling we actually have is no, we need to bounce on this and be willing to go see the next 24, 36, 72 hours of what it means of having to deal with this. We also need to think about when we start saying, is this being realistic? We should actually ask, is this being aligned, or is this aligned of where I want to be? So realistic can be a cage where aligned is more freeing. Because if it's getting you closer to where you want to be, then why are we not doing it? Right? So I'm going to leave you with these couple of things. If you stopped overthinking and actually just started, what might actually happen? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen and what's the best thing that can happen? So my encouragement to you, do some homework, is go try that thing, the thing that you keep putting off. The real fear isn't about the failing, it's the confronting of your own capability. We're too scared to see what happens. And we have this self-doubt that it's more likely to be the negative outcome than the positive outcome. But I think you underestimate your ability to make things happen. If you really want something, we will work hard at it. If you don't really want it, don't make excuses for not doing it. Just say you're not going to do it, right? But by you saying, oh, I'm waiting for the right time, you're just putting it off. If you're actually saying, no, I don't want to do this because it's not aligned with what I want, then that makes more sense, right? So if you're more ready, I think what I'm trying to say here is I think we're probably more ready than you think, because if you can't say no, then you're just holding on to these other issues of trying to work through, of actually, realizing how capable you are. But that can be scary. I get it. It is scary. But if you don't actually start to take the steps forward, you're going to be sitting in this logic period forever. And you'll get stuck there and you will not gain any momentum. Now, I will encourage you, the next episode we're actually talking about is going to be momentum. So make sure you come back next week. We're going to continue this kind of conversation, but it's going to be around momentum. And once you've made the start, momentum is what's going to get you going to those next levels of where you want to be. So make sure you subscribe, like. If you do want to continue the conversation, jump down below. We can continue the conversation. That's a mouthful. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or, hear your stories or whatever. So appreciate you being here. You have a wonderful day. Cheers.